It's Friday with friends, everyone. We got some folks joining in to talk to us, including our buddy Will Ricardella. He is at the Washington Examiner, inside the Beltway, inside the swamp. He's got thoughts on many things. Will, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
So tell me this, man. How do you think it went for the Trumpster last night? I thought clear victory, but give us a little bit of, does it, where it matters, if it matters.
No, look, I think Trump did a good job. It's a different dynamic this time around. He's on the defensive. He's not going after Hillary Clinton, right? So the debates are completely different. He's not on the offensive against Hillary. He's on the defensive against Joe Biden. He scored points on climate change where you otherwise think he wouldn't. He hit on immigration. He was cool. He was collected. He got some zingers in there, in particular after Biden's line about his family. It's not about my family, your family, or my family, it's your family. And, Donald Trump said, look, you want to move away from China. That was a big hit. But is he as effective as he was against Hillary? No, but he's doing a good job. He's doing what he has to do.
Now, where do you think we are in terms of the way that people are going to view the better steward of the economy? It felt like there wasn't really a lot of conversation around that during this debate. What's going to actually happen? Joe Biden keeps saying that with his green new energy thing, there's an analysis, 12 million jobs. I mean, this is just fantasy land stuff.
That's good. That's actually a good point you bring up, because Trump always drops the ball on this. If you want to talk about the economy and COVID, let's look at red states and how they're outperforming blue states. Blue states are an absolute disaster, whether it's in deaths per million, whether it's in their economy and unemployment rates. Red states have largely outperformed them. So what do Americans want? Do they want the blue state model that's devastating, destroying livelihoods, losing people in nursing homes, high unemployment in the Bronx? And you probably know this is a 20% unemployment rate. The people are going to college there and they're handing out food in their classes. That's how bad it is. But nobody seems to be talking about that. Trump should have highlighted that more. We have the Joe Biden, which is the blue state plan, which has been an awful one and ineffective, or the red state plan, which has been largely successful. So Trump really needs to start highlighting that.
And we see this also with the way that the Democrats and Pelosi leading the charge, of course, are so desperate to get huge bailouts. The red states aren't saying we need the federal government to shore up all of our finances. It's California, it's New York City, it's places where they run the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're just weaponizing COVID at this point. It's all about politics. How they're tabulating the death rates are all about politics, and it's political, creating financial incentives to code COVID deaths and so on. They used to be open and honest about it at the beginning. Now you don't hear about it anymore. So look, this is a political virus now. The masks have become a political symbol. There is, and I want to state this clearly, I wrote a piece on it yesterday. There is zero conclusive evidence that masks do anything to stop the transmission of COVID-19. None. They're going off of observational studies, which are an absolute joke. And when they did those observational studies, it was a lull period. Some of it was in Europe and so on, which are now seeing spikes. So that's the problem with observational studies. There is one study coming, a randomized controlled trial out of Denmark. 3 journals are refusing to publish
They keep hiding that study, Will. That study is supposed to be out for months now, and all of a sudden, a real scientific study on mask usage out of Denmark, where, by the way, I think it's either Denmark or we know about Sweden, obviously, but either Denmark or Holland, where they don't the public health act, their equivalent of Fauci has been like, nah, don't wear a mask in public, don't worry about it. So I think he knows what's in that study.
So that was Denmark, and that was like during the study was happening. They actually walked that back later because of the political pressure. But look, this study was conducted in April to June. It should have been out in August. It's not coming out. There are hints of the researchers saying, look, they don't want to discuss it, but they are saying, look, this may be controversial for some, and that may be why it's not getting printed. Look, things don't get published all the time in journals. It's just like we reached out for an explanation. They told us that they're not going to talk about anything that isn't published on the Lancet or any of the other medical journals. So that was their excuse when we reached out. So this thing has become 100% political, Buck. They stake their futures on it. They stake blue state bailouts on it, and they don't want it to go anywhere. They don't want to answer for these draconian lockdowns, but destroyed lives. It killed people, and it destroyed their livelihoods and their businesses, and that's what Americans are concerned about. not Joe Biden looking into the camera and telling Americans how they feel. You know what I mean?
That was so corny, by the way. That was one. That was a real groaner of a moment last night. But he's like, "Hey, let me. It's not about my family." And then he sort of stares into the camera. It's about your family. I'm glad Trump tuned him up on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of his hardest hits, is saying, look, here you go. You do what a typical politician does. I'm not a politician. And that's what Trump has to stick to, is I get things done. This is what I've done. He should reel off, this is what I've done. I've ended the crisis at the border that you and Barack Obama started. You were the first ones putting them in cages. We don't do that anymore. We don't have any incentives for them to flock to the border. You called it a humanitarian crisis. I ended it. These are the things that Trump has to stick to. He's always been largely unfocused. That's his problem, is he's not hitting on the facts. He has the facts on his side, but he can't readily weaponize them like, say, any other politician probably could.
Speaking of Will Ricardella of the Washington Examiner, by the way, I hope you sent a high five for me to your colleague Susan Ferrecchio, who was just fantastic when talking to Brian Stelter over from CNN about the issue of the lack of coverage of the Hunter Biden emails. So tell her that she did us proud. I played that one already on the show. But were you surprised that there wasn't more of Trump didn't really land a big one on the Hunter Biden thing last night. The moderator obviously wasn't going to try to pin Biden down on it. It felt like almost a non-issue in that debate.
Yeah, look, what Trump should have done is say, are those Hunter's emails? Is that Hunter's laptop? The moderator isn't going to do it. And look, Kristen Welker did a good job. There's a very low bar in the media. So for the media, she did a good job. She actually asked about it. So, I mean, that's where we're at today in the media. But Trump should have been very focused. He should have been more prepared and said, is that Hunter Biden's laptop? You got to nail this guy down. That could have been a winning issue right there. I think that it comes back to Trump isn't as good on the defensive as he is on the offensive. Now, he did well, and he certainly won. I think there's no doubt Trump won that debate, but he always misses the opportunities to land the haymakers. Ronald Reagan never had that problem. He landed the haymakers. He did with Mondale in '84, a couple weeks before the election like Trump, and he won in a landslide. But at that time, when Mondale and Reagan in late October, it was neck and neck like it is now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in these next 2 weeks.
I know you're following this very closely, the election at the Examiner, and you guys have reporters out there on the trail and in the field bringing back information in real time. What are you going to be looking for Trump? What's his closing argument over the next week? If he's doing it the right way, what does it sound like to you?
Look, this election, I'm looking at these polls, and I'm looking at the IBD poll, the Talfagar fella who was in the state polls. They're eerily similar to Hillary, to 2016, Trump beat Hillary. They don't capture. The problem is they have a hard time capturing enthusiasm. It seems they're capturing the shy vote, people who don't want to admit they're going to vote for Trump. They're eerily similar, almost spot on. I think enthusiasm is what closes the gap. Trump needs to travel. He needs to get out there. He needs to have rallies. He needs to go to these swing states, and he needs to tell them, like I said, what he's accomplished, what he's done. He has a lot of people who have never been registered before, who haven't voted before, come to his rallies, who were Democrats, come to his rallies. That's what people forget. A lot of these blue states, there's a lot of Democrats there that go for Trump. I mean, this is how he won in 2016. He won that the Obama-Trump voter and that blue-collar vote, and that's what he's going to likely win again. I think he's going to win a larger portion of the black vote. He should focus more on that because Joe Biden's terribly worried about that. So, look, I think if anybody's calling this race now, they're crazy. But I think it looks pretty good for Trump. I'm not going to lie.
Where do you think it comes? Where do you think it comes down in Pennsylvania, man? That's the one that I'm looking at right now. And Sean Parnell's a buddy of mine. He's out there fighting in that big race. They've got this 3-day delay because of the Supreme Court 4-4 Supreme Court decision that then reverts down lower. And now they're going to be I mean, if it's tight there, they're going to be counting ballots for at least a few days after the election.
Have you been to Pennsylvania lately, Buck? Like outside of Philadelphia, outside of Pittsburgh?
No.
Have you been? I've never seen anything like this. Like you go there, there's huge Trump billboards. There's people in Trump cars. They got it on their cars. They're driving around honking their horns with flags hanging off the back of their car. I honestly, and I've loved politics. I remember, in elementary school arguing about George H.W. Bush in the 1992 election and so on. In my life, in blue collar areas where I grew up, I've never seen such enthusiasm for a candidate. Now, Philadelphia is a commie city. Pittsburgh's a commie city. That they're going to win that, and they have the numbers in those cities, so it will be close. But I just don't think the turnout's going to be there for Joe Biden. I think if you see a large turnout, you're going to see it for Trump, and I think that's what Biden's worried about. This Hunter email story, that's going to harm his turnout. It's like the perfect time and the perfect story to hurt turnout for Joe Biden.
Are you a little, and we're speaking of Will Riccardello of the Washington Examiner. Will, before we let you get off to your weekend, are you a little surprised that, do things, maybe this is just my perception, do things feel a little quiet to you right now for this stage of the election cycle? You know, given that we had riots and lunatics all summer, Biden voters, of course, doing all the things they were doing, it feels like, I don't know, like either we're waiting to get hit with something or maybe people are just a little bit tired of it. I don't know.
I absolutely feel that. I think what you're feeling is a big shift in momentum. We've had riots, Joe Biden making claims about Trump and COVID and the masks, and then Trump contracted COVID. It had to be his fault. Trump survives. Everybody's shocked. You have their narratives constantly collapsing. And that's what you see. This is the wreckage of their narratives that aren't working. It's not sticking, much like in 2016. So what you're seeing is this huge change in momentum with the nadir being the debate last night. They're reorganizing. They don't know what to do right now, the Democrats. Trump has to hit the road, keep that momentum going. If he does that, he'll win. If he has a bad gaffe, you know what I mean? Or something else comes out where, Trump has a misstep, it will hurt him pretty badly. But, this is teetering on the edge here. But if he keeps that momentum going, stays on message, it's very good for Donald Trump and it's bad for Joe Biden. Look, Joe Biden can still win this thing, no doubt. But, Trump has no momentum on his side.
Will Riccardello of the Washington Examiner. Will, my friend, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Friday with Friends continues. We've got Tina Lowe, also from the Washington Examiner, joining us right now. Going to ask her some questions about some possible surprises in this upcoming Election Day vote from different groups. Tina, good to have you back.
Good to be here, Buck.
So I'm going to guess, because you seem like somebody that prizes decorum and a more delicate approach in debates. I'm guessing you like this debate more than the rock'em sock'em, salt the earth with their bones first debate with Trump.
Oh, absolutely. And Trump finally let Biden talk all over himself, which is what he really needed to do in the first debate instead of filibustering him out of it. It is true that Biden is not terribly with it, but that doesn't really come across when you don't let him get a word out. And this time he did. So
there's a lot of focus now on what could be some of the difference makers on Election Day. We've had, I don't even know what the latest count is. I know it was over 30 million early votes. We're at tens of millions of votes already cast. But we got Election Day just coming up here in a little bit, and people are looking at a few different groups. And what I wanted to ask you about is the possibility, as you're looking at the polls, of a surprise in favor of Trump from Latino and Black voters.
Yes, it is quite interesting that this election will wind up being much more polarized along the lines of gender than of race in comparison to 2016. Biden is doing better than Hillary Clinton. The first major party nominee was a woman. But yeah, the Trump campaign really has made inroads with young Latino men and young Black men. Older Black men are probably still going to go for Biden, but they've done a lot of outreach. You're seeing this heavily in Florida, where this is the case. And if Trump winds up winning Arizona, it will likely be young Latinos who save him.
Absolutely. That would be quite a difference maker down there. And what are we thinking about with the youth vote? Because this is always talked about as the difference maker for Democrats. From what I understand, so far, it's looking like it does in every other election cycle where the media tells you, the youth will come out for the Democrat. And it's like, well, they also want to play PlayStation.
Yeah, and also, if the youth vote were really going to have this unprecedented turnout, then why didn't Bernie Sanders win? We all saw what the polling said before they all went to go vote, but they just didn't materialize for him. Older voters still will. And that's a little bit concerning for Trump because Biden is polling better with seniors than Hillary did. However, Trump's bread is really buttered by Gen X and sort of the middle-aged vote, and they also turn out in fairly high numbers. Young voters, I just don't know if they're going to show up for the 77-year-old white guy.
We'll have to see. Somehow, Bernie Sanders was the guy that had so much of the enthusiasm from the 20 to 25 crowd, from what we'd all see, and just be to throw this in the mix too. It's a little bit of a throwback to when we were looking at the midterms and what was the difference maker there. But I think the demo that we were supposed to be so focused in on is the suburban college educated women, right? Wasn't that the one that how are we looking for that for Trump this time?
So, obviously Republicans lost a lot in the House in 2018 because, the suburban mother vote did turn out. But mind you, they turned out for extremely centrist, moderate Democrats. Last night, Biden committed to shutting down the oil industry in due time. You had Democrats in the House coming out, at least one, on the debate night to condemn that and to say that, no, actually, we do need the oil industry. So this is not going to be 2018 because Biden may be a moderate, but the rest of his party is not. And I don't think that, who's on his climate change panel? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She won't even allow nuclear or any market-oriented form of clean energy. So, in the final stretch, Trump needs to make this about Biden, not about Hunter Biden, about Joe Biden letting the radical Dems define his policy. And that will eventually bring suburban women home.
Well, we got about a minute left here. Who's going to win and what's going to be the after-action thesis about why that side won?
Who's going to win? I don't think anyone can say it because it's impossible to know how COVID will affect all of this. We really don't know if there are cases of shy Trump voters in the polling, but I'll put it to you this way. If Trump is able to keep Florida, if Trump is able to keep Pennsylvania, and he doesn't lose any of those mostly reddish but somewhat purpling states like, Ohio, North Carolina, it's possible we get a map that's very similar to Hillary Clinton's. That being said, Biden has had a much more stable lead. And if Biden wins, everyone's going to have the wrong takeaway from this. Biden ran as the most moderate, the most safe candidate in the Democratic primary and won resoundingly. That does not give him a mandate to govern like AOC. That gives him the mandate to govern like a 2014 Joe Biden.
Yes. Until they get rid of the filibuster and do an amnesty. But we'll have to take care of that another time. Tina Lowe, everybody at the Washington Examiner. Have a great weekend, Tina. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, back.
It's time for roll call.
Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com if you want to email. Instagram Buck Sexton. And Parler Buck Sexton. Those of you who are on Parler. I don't think I can do. Do we have DM on Parler? I've never even tried.
Don't send messages there. It doesn't work very well.
Yeah, no, don't do that. That's too much. But yeah, you can follow me on Parler. So that's a good thing to do because we post there as well. And also, what's our Rumble account, Producer Mark? How do people follow us there?
You can just go to rumble.com and search The Buck Sexton Show. I think we're a featured page.
There we go. Fantastic. All right, let's get to this action. Jim writes, hey, Buck and Mark, I listened to Wednesday's show and completely agree with you what would happen if the Dems control all three branches of government. No filibuster, packed court, new states, mass amnesty, etc. What I don't hear anyone talking about is that they would also control the awesome power of our federal law enforcement and intelligence apparatus. That's what scares the crap out of me. Look what they did the last time they controlled them. They spied on and tried to imprison the opposition candidate and then president. What wouldn't they be willing to do this time around, especially because they know the press won't even investigate it and would probably help cover it up. Shields high, fellow patriots. Jim, I am concerned that there will be reprisals against the most stalwart voices in support of Donald Trump if, in fact, Biden wins this election. And they won't make it that obvious at first. They'll build to it over time. But, there are people that are going to want payback. I mean, just look at what Comey and Strzok and Page and all the rest of that crew and Brennan and Clapper. Look at what they did. They felt like their privileges and their positions were threatened, and they weaponized the federal government and the intelligence apparatus and federal law enforcement against the president of the United States. That's pretty terrifying. And they did it. And they got away with it, too. I mean, some of them got fired. I know Strzok got fired, although now he's teaching at Georgetown. What do I always tell you? The left takes care of its ideological, assassins. Always. On the right, if you get into trouble, like you get fired from Fox News or something because you crossed the line in a debate or whatever, you're just done usually. I mean, that's it. But on the left, there's always. I mean, it's not even just in media. Oh, you'll get a board seat on a company, or you'll be a consultant for Netflix, or you'll get a $3 million book deal for your life rights or whatever. That's very powerful. The same way they control institutions, they also have a pathway. It's like the mafia guys that would always pay the family of the guy who was sitting in prison who didn't talk, The left will do that for you. The left is like the mafia that way. If you go to prison and you don't talk, now if you betray them, obviously they're also like the mafia. But if you go down fighting and you don't turn and become a right winger, or you don't come forward and hurt their cause, they'll take care of you. They'll take care of you. And I'm honestly jealous. I'm jealous of that on the left. I wish that we had more of that on the right, but instead, no, we have a lot of people on the right who spend all their time, instead of trying to expand what ideological territory and platforms we control, they just want to go around the pool and push all the other kids under the water. We're in the kiddie pool. The left is in the big, beautiful, saltwater pool with the gunite and the big, we're in the little kiddie pool that's too warm because of, what's happening there. And we got people who are the biggest kids in the kiddie pool running around pushing people underwater and, oh no, and, no competition, so it's a disaster. If it's really about what's going to help the country over the long term and make this place continue to be the freest, best hope for all humanity. I know that maybe sounds a little bit corny, but I think it's important. I think it's true. The left, they're out there with, they're all sunning themselves and they know they're good. They know that they got a big, big, beautiful pool to swim in. Bigly. Maybe I'll probably share that Twitter thread the one that Rush read. I'll share that again out now because I think it's more important than ever. We're seeing this with the media. They did suppress the story. It didn't totally work, but we couldn't do that. Could you imagine? Can you imagine Donald Trump Jr. found with with a laptop of his found with photos of him smoking crack or something and all this stuff, and the right would be like, nope, sorry, story shut down. We would never dream of having that kind of power, but the left has it. So yes, Jim, back to your initial thought. I do believe that there will be, unfortunately, payback if Biden wins, and it's not going to be fun. There's going to be a purge in media. They're going to try to deplatform really aggressively. They're going to investigate people. They're going to investigate more Trump associates. They'll do all that stuff. We, the right, the conservative portion of the country, always goes, well, we don't want to, we're not really going to prosecute Hillary after the election for the emails, even though we could, because, we want to keep the country feeling like it's, still somehow united and whatever. The left is like, yeah, whatever. We're going to just completely, we are going to go around after we've won the battle and bayonet the survivors. That's their attitude. I know it's not a warm and fuzzy thing to say, but that's where we are. Jeff, shields higher than ever, Buck. Been a silent listener, but when you mentioned Hannibal and the Battle of Cannae, I had to speak up. I can't wait for that podcast. By the way, your Dr. Fauci impression is the best. Keep up the good work, and thank you. I really do think Trump will win, but if not, don't give up. You are the best. No, Jeff, you are the best. Even without mitigation, wear your mask. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it, and it's great for you. Great to have you, rather, to write in. And yeah, we're working on this now. I mean, now that producer Mark adequately shamed me for not keeping up on my promise to give you guys. Now we're doing a whole series. We're going to do at least 6 of them, and I'm now committing to this professionally. And I'm going to leave it to all of you to share these things. There's not going to be political podcasts. They're going to be straight up good, fascinating history podcasts, conversational tone. I'm not scripting them out anymore. So I'm just going to sit and talk to you about this stuff. Factually accurate, but, it's not going to be that was something that I struggled with in the earlier days. Should it be more theatrical with more sound effects or whatever? Some of you really like that. And the old Lepanto podcast had that for the Battle of Lepanto, which I'm going to redo now in this new format. But I think a lot of you just wanted to hear good history stories. And that's what we're going to be. I'm just going to be telling you good history stories. Because I love it. I mean, this is what I do in my spare time. Because I obviously have a really exciting social life. What can I tell you? Pablo. Hey, Buck Shields. Hi. I watched the debate tonight. Thought it went well for the president. I do think if the candidates had to fill 2.5 minutes a turn, Biden would have keeled over. The last half hour, he was fading fast. Pablo, I also saw that Biden was losing steam. And, there's always been this part of me that feels like I don't like attacking Biden, and I've done it, and I own up to it. I don't like attacking Biden for being I avoid the word. I don't use the word senile, or I try to avoid using the word senile if I've said it. I think that's going too far. Also, because I know how painful that is for families when loved ones. I remember my great grandmother. I used to go visit her in Brooklyn. And I would go see her, and I was a little kid, and I didn't really understand, and she didn't remember who I was, and that was really distressing for me. And I was, 5 or 6 years old. So I understand that's a really sensitive stuff. So I don't want to be attacking a politician because because we're all going there. We're all going to be in this place where we're certainly too old to be president. That's for sure. And people that are of that age, late 70s into their 80s, they deserve respect, and they deserve celebration of their life, and loved ones and family and friends around, and to have peace, and there's just but instead we got to point out Joe Biden's too old for the job, and the guy sounds like he's not all there sometimes, and it's fair game, but I tell you, I do always have a little bit of I don't like going after that, and I've done it, and I know that, but afterwards I always go, gosh, could they really? I don't know. I get very mixed feelings about it. Ron, Trump came off as a person with vigor and plan to move America forward. Biden, on the other hand, appeared tired and past his prime with no real plan other than old leftist platitudes. The real decision makers behind Biden are AOC plus 3, Pelosi, and other scary forces. Ron, I do think, so here's how it works. Biden will do what the Democrat Party tells him to do. I use the word apparatus a lot for that, but the power centers of the Democrat Party, Biden will do what they tell him. And AOC in that group, even if they're not officially the power players in position-wise within the party, they are able to, with their demands. I mean, AOC is essentially able to take the Democrat Party hostage just with her social media accounts and the amount of focus she can put on an issue and push it from a far left perspective. So she can pull the party left, and she will. And once the party's pulled left by her, Biden's going to do what the party says. So that's how. It's not necessarily AOC direct to Biden. It's going to be AOC and her ideological comrades continuing to demand the furthest left version of the Democrat Party imaginable. And then when the party, when the Schumers and the Pelosi's and so on are like, okay, well, we got to do this now, Biden will say, sir, yes, sir. And that's what's going to end up happening. Producer Mark, what are you up to this weekend, buddy?
I found this amazing cookie place in New Jersey. Me and the wife might go check it out.
Are they like warm, gooey cookies when you get them?
Yeah, they have Nutella stuffed chocolate chip cookies.
Oh my gosh!
I know, and Nutella is like my favorite substance, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nutella is something that you could put it on things that aren't technically food, and as long as they weren't dangerous, I would still eat them.
Yeah, I mean, I would lick Nutella off of
Right.
many
like
objects.
if you gave me a pile of leaves in your driveway and then you just covered them in Nutella, I'd be like, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it was invented by an American GI in World War II who went to Italy, and I'm pretty sure that's where the story comes from. You could fact check me on that one, but I'm pretty sure so. It was an American who visited there. But yeah, it's amazing.
He was a great man.
Yeah, I think I might be mixing it up with pizza or something. Anyway, whatever. It sounded like a cool story in my head, and now I'm probably wrong on this one. Someone's going to
Whoever made it, thank them.
Yeah, I'll thank them. The global expert on Nutella history is going to write in because he clearly listens to this show. Because if you're a history nerd, you're going to love this show. He's going to be like, Buck, you have slandered the history of this great substance. But yeah, pizza. I feel like they still don't. They still have this argument as to whether it was brought back to America by GIs in World War II or it was a thing in Italy beforehand. I feel like it must have been a thing in Italy beforehand.
Yeah, I think the Italy thing definitely is true.
Yeah, the Snow Princess talks about how she likes Neapolitan pizza so much, and I'm just if I find gluten-free pizza, I have to be excited. So I don't know.
Isn't Neapolitan pizza just a round pie?
I think it's thinner, but I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah,
that's one thing on my bucket list, to go to Italy and have pizza there.
Oof. Italy's a great country to visit. All right, now I'm getting hungry again. Ron, Trump came off as a person with vigor. Oh, we already did that one. Richard, Buck, the Dems love masks. Joe Biden clutches his like a teddy bear. As you know, these disposable masks and respirators are made with plastic fibers that are made from oil, the same oil industry that Biden wants to end. What will the masks be made from if there is no oil? End an entire industry because it pollutes? How can this corrupt, dim-witted nincompoop be the Democrat nominee? What will the farm equipment be powered by for food? What will the tractor trailers run on to bring the goods to the stores? Construction, backup power generation is done with diesel generators. Rolling blackouts for everyone. Buck, what will kill more seniors, rolling blackouts or COVID? Let's compare Cuomo COVID to Newsom blackouts and see. Gas cans and shields high. Richard, you are absolutely correct about what the catastrophic consequences would be of getting rid of fossil fuels. People just think, oh, I'll drive an electric car. It's no. Now you're spending a ton of money to heat your home, to cool your home. Now every electrical device in your house, every appliance is going to be costing you a lot more money. All the food that you're eating will cost more money to grow and to be transported to you and to keep it cold and to keep it fresh. I mean, it's a nightmare. A nightmare. And for what? Because you really think that, look, if Florida's going to be underwater in 20 years, someone needs to sell me their Palm Beach mansion right now at a 50% discount from what they paid for it. Then I will believe climate change. If California's coast is going to be underwater in 20 years, 50 years even, I want someone to give me a really great deal on a mansion right on the beach in Malibu, because right now, they start at like $10 million. I just don't think it's going to happen. Mike, hey, Buck, I had to make quick mention of your various hilarious references to Brian Stelter being pat on the head. It's comedy gold that never gets old. Keep up the laughs and voice impressions, especially my favorite, Joy Behar. And hello, Hillary. Absolute gold, my friend. Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Joy, I want to get Joy on the show. Would she come on? You think she'd come on? I don't know. You know who I think Joy would like? Producer Mark. I don't know why. I just think she'd think that Producer Mark was a cutie patootie. You guys would get along.
I really don't want that to happen ever.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we go back in studio. Lori writes, as always, love your show. Producer Mark has a great dry sense of humor. Well, true. Thanks, Lori. Just a quick note. Sloppy Joes are great. Coincidentally, I had a craving the other day and made them. Then I heard you trash talking them. They are a yummy comfort food. Do you know of a decent brand of gluten-free hamburger buns? In my opinion, most are crumbly and have odd texture. Lori, funny you ask. I have looked and I've tried, and the gluten-free hamburger buns, my brother has this company, Susie's, that makes all these delicious gluten-free muffins. They're amazing. I have a Susie's donut pretty much every morning with my Black Rifle coffee, and his stuff is great. but they don't make hamburger buns. The hamburger buns I've had that are gluten-free are just trash, inedible. It's one of those things you just can't get good gluten-free hamburger buns. They're not worth it. I just eat no bun now because the bun is never worth it when it's gluten-free. I'm jealous of all you people that get to eat your stretchy, delicious, potato bun or whatever they call it. Oh, they're so good.
Why don't you just get your brother to make some buns?
I know. I got to tell them to add it. They make great chocolate chip cookies now, too, which are in Whole Foods. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. One more week until election week. Enjoy yourselves. Relax. We'll be back soon. Shields high.